welcome to the first episode of Overcranked. I'm Nick.
And I'm Freddie.
And this is our Back to the Future special. So what we're doing today is discussing each film in order and talking about what we like and what we don't like about it. And there isn't much we don't like, but talking about stuff we like about those films and interesting bits of trivia. Those pieces of trivia that everybody knows, but people still think they look clever when they point them out. Alright, so without further ado, film 1. I'm sure most people listening to this know the story of where Back to the Future came from, where the idea came from. It was one of the writers, I believe, you know, Freddie.
It was Bob Gale.
Bob Gale. He was looking through his high school yearbook, and he was looking at his, not his yearbook, sorry, his parents' yearbook. And did they go to the same school, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was thinking, I wonder if I would have been friends with my dad, because he found out his dad was valedictorian or something. And that was kind of where the idea came from. What about if somebody could go back and meet their parents, would they get on? Of course, we know that George and Marty don't. I kind of like that story. It's quite interesting because we've all wondered at times. I don't imagine I would have got on terribly well with my dad, actually. When he and I were school age. It's kind of interesting, but maybe perhaps not the best way to start, because I'm sure most of you know that story. One of the many things that makes Back to the Future so special, possibly one of the more important things that makes it so unique in the world of film, and certainly science fiction film, is that it's not really a sci-fi film. Freddie and I have talked about this, have we not?
Oh yes. At great length too.
Oh yes. Mostly in the pub.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah, it's not really a science fiction film, or at least the first one isn't. It's more of a comedy, and the sci-fi stuff is kind of put on the back burner, which is kind of interesting, because it's what makes it so unique. You look at a lot of kind of science fiction films, the science fiction element is, perhaps as it should be, the really, really important part of the story. And yes, in the film called Back to the Future, there is time travel, and Marty needs to get to the clock tower for the correct time, which neither of us can remember, but it's really a love story, or I suppose it's a wingman movie, isn't it? It's Marty trying to hook two people up who are in fact his parents.
Things time travel can do to you, eh?
I quite like that. Always have done. Makes it pretty special. Now jumping forward to the end of the film, again, like I say, this wasn't intended as a science fiction film, and certainly not a series. The ending that so many of us love, roads, where are we going? We don't need roads. We'll cut this bit out, we should put in that clip of Doc saying that.
What about copyright stuff?
Oh, doesn't matter. We won't get found. The ending of the first film was just intended as a joke, which I kind of like. It's funny how it spawned, that one scene spawned a great science fiction series, and there aren't many of those. There's the first two Terminator films, which are pretty spectacular. Alien, Starship,
Aliens.
The Alien series, I mean.
Right.
And Starship Troopers. Star Trek. There aren't many great sci-fi film series, and Back to the Future kind of accidentally began one of those. Something else I can like about the ending. Where do you stand on it, Freddie? The scene where the ending, not the very ending, but when Marty wakes up in the present day, and he's the same, but everything else is different. I think it's great, because it's a great way to kind of get around paradoxes and stuff.
Yeah,
and is in fact,
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. It's also just basically tells the audience it's time travel. Get over it.
I have some gripes about that, because the first one, non-intentionally perhaps, lays down some rules which later get broken, but that's a different matter.
That is it, yes.
I'm happy to go with it's time travel, just don't think about it.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't happen in the same film in which rules are laid down. So if you have a very clear set of rules about how time travel works, you then can't expect the audience to have kind of, it's time travel, don't think about it.
As you mentioned earlier, they weren't planning to do any more.
No, they weren't, but they still non-intentionally perhaps lay down rules in this film. That scene where Marty wakes up in the present day and it's different, being kind of that contributes to the laying down of the rules that are established.
Yeah.
I quite like the way that the ending of the first film, not the very ending, but when Marty makes up in the present, gets around to time travel. Yeah, I quite like it, and it's still used today, that technique, if you like. It's pretty well homaged in X-Men Days of Future Past, where Wolverine... Cover your ears, Freddy. Freddy hasn't seen Days of Future Past yet, where Wolverine wakes up in the future, or the near future, and Xavier's alive and Scott and Jean are around, and I absolutely love that. That's possibly my favourite scene of that film. Yeah, it could be my favourite scene of that film. Yes, you can take your ears... You can take your hands off your ears now, Freddy. Okay.
Right.
Favourite... Oh, what have you got, Freddy? Ah!
Well, the first film is my favourite of the three.
Oh,
But,
I'm undecided. I liked the third one for a long time. That might be the first one.
yeah. But my favourite scene in the first one is the high school dance where
Johnny B.
Martin
Good.
introduces rock music to the 50s America. Those two things, rock music and 50s teenagers, have become so intertwined.
They have. People used to say that it was... Oh, people still say that it was the Beatles and their music that kind of invented the teenager. No, Marty McFly did it.
Yes.
I love that scene where Marvin Barry picks up the phone. It's like, Chuck, this is your cousin. Chuck, this is Marvin Barry. You want that new sound? Listen to this. Absolutely love that. We've kind of come to an end of the... Oh, by the way, the reason I screamed earlier was because I was playing with an elastic band and it snapped and kind of stung my hand. Yeah, I kind of run out of notes for the first film. Well, that was over quickly.
Oh, one more thing.
Oh,
Sorry.
let's hear it.
Why don't Marty's parents recognise him?
Yeah, why don't they? It's quite funny. I mean, I'm willing to kind of accept they just forgot what their friend Calvin Klein looked like, but it's never addressed.
But I personally would remember the person who was responsible for me and my wife.
You think so, but
my 3 children.
Yeah.
To look like.
Oh, we can just kind of ignore that. It's Back to the Future. We love it, so it doesn't matter.
True.
It's like the trench in Return of the Jedi. Not the trench, the exhaust pipe in Return of the Jedi on the second Death Star, which we will come to later. Alright, Freddy.
Yes.
We kind of get it in the second film, which we will come to later. But what would you think to a Biff death scene? Would you like that?
Ooh.
Well, that's an interesting idea. That just occurred to me.
Ooh. A proper Biff death scene.
Yeah, like he's dead for good. Like if he died in... I think the only time they could have done it, really, to get around stuff in the second one, would be to kill him off sometime... Present day Biff, sometime in the third film.
Yes.
1985 Biff.
You know what, I'll save that until we get onto the second film.
Okay. Yeah. Write in, guys. Would you have liked a Biff death scene? Or tweet us at the Overcranked. If you would have liked to see Biff die. They were thinking about killing Buford in the third film. And Biff kind of has a death scene in Back to the Future 2, which we will get to. Sorry, Freddy, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. He just pointed at me.
Yes. In agreement.
Okay. So, favourite scene in... We know yours, it's Chuck Berry.
Oh, yes.
Not Chuck Berry, Johnny B. Good. I'm undecided. I think possibly... I know what my favourite scene is. So close. It's so obvious. It's near the beginning, when Marty... I thought it was funny when I first saw the film when I was like 10, 11, and I still think it's funny now. I'm 20. I love it. I'm not quite sure what about it makes me laugh. Or laugh as much as I do, when Marty is at Doc's house and he's on the phone to Doc and the clock's go off. It's like, my experiment worked, Marty. What do you mean? I set these clocks to be 25 minutes slow. Wait, Doc, are you telling me it's 25 minutes past 8? Precisely, Marty. Damn! I'm late for school! I love that. I don't know what makes me laugh. What about it makes me laugh so much, but I enjoy that. It's, yeah, I think my favourite moment in the first film, which trumps George knocking Biff out, the cafe scene, which is kind of the first of scenes repeating each other from earlier on. Again, we'll get to that later. Even the clock tower might be, damn, I'm late for school. Film 2, now this is the one we've got the most on because it's the different one.
Yes, and it's the most complicated of the three.
Ah, yes. Now,
By far.
before we start talking about the second film, I'll tell you now, Freddie and I, sometime last year, had a discussion about the rules in Back to the Future.
This was one of the many times we have discussed Back to the Future in the pub.
Yeah. I should tell you now, if you're ever discussing a time travel film and you realise you have to start drawing diagrams to get your point across, all is lost.
Yes,
as
all
we
is
learned
lost.
that fateful afternoon. The first film lays down rules about time travel. It doesn't say, like, Doc or Marty don't say them out loud, like, this will happen if you do this, this will happen if you do this. But the events in the first film explain to the audience rules about time travel, which are then broken in the second film. Now, I'm not going to go and explain this because it's nitpicking, because it's Back to the Future, and we love Back to the Future, and we can overlook things like that. But if you want to know what I'm talking about, write in or tweet us, and I will put up a video.
A special video.
Yeah, a special video just for you guys.
Yes.
About how Freddie and I broke Back to the Future, and that will probably have diagrams on to explain.
Yes.
The second film is, it's usually seen as kind of the one that's a bit different to the others because it's more science fiction.
Yeah,
It's
is.
more of a science fiction kind of adventure film. It's often seen as the darkest of the films, which is, of course, because of the dark, evil 1985. Maybe that's kind of the best sequence. Oh,
my favourite scene from Part 2 is in that section.
Is it with Strickland? I think this is this is great. Before we go on, Freddie and I have just been talking. We both we were talking before we started recording, and we were saying that we both love the scene in which Marty goes in parallel evil 1985, when Marty goes into what he believes to be his house, and it's that teenage girl's bedroom, and Dad comes in with a baseball bat, and he's like, I just got the wrong house. You're damn right you got the wrong house. Absolutely love it.
Oh, yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. And of course, there is some anarchy and punk stuff in
course, which you love.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There are various things I like about film 2. I like that because it's the most time travel-y, we get to see the most variations of 1985 of Hill Valley, which is exciting because we see the one we've already seen, the 55, and we see that slightly differently.
Yeah.
We see Evil 1985, and we see the best version of Hill Valley, which is, of course, 2015.
Yes.
We are recording this yesterday, but you will be hearing this on Back to the Future Day.
That Marty McFly landed in 2015.
21st of October. Our friend, this will interest you guys, Freddie and myself and our friend Lauren, we were in London. Oh, it was July?
It was July the 16th to 20th.
Excellent, so it was in July. And Lauren, he'd been before, showed us this guy, and he sells strips of film from films. I've got a few of them. I love them. I bought one from him, which is The Prestige, and then I've got others from other films. He sells them either in beer mats or as lampshades, or he sells them in a kind of, not plaque, but piece of card, like a photo frame, like a school photo frame, with a piece of writing about the film. Mine's from The Prestige, and it's got Bale and Jackman and Kane in, which I think is brilliant. But our friend Lauren has got, I think it's from the second film, an image of Marty with the cameras behind him. You see the back of his head looking up at the clock tower. I believe it's the 2015 version. It's so cool. We've all got a few of them, but she's got the best one.
I got one from The Italian Job. The good Italian Job with Michael Caine in, I should point out, where there's a bit about halfway. I don't know about halfway through it, but there's a bit where the mafia push over some sports cars over a cliff in the Alps basically, and there's an Aston Martin DB4 that goes over, and that's the one that I got.
I remember you buying that.
Yes.
If you're interested in that, by the way, if any of you are London-based, write in, and I will find from Lauren where the guy was, because she's been a couple of times. We only went the once, and we'll give you a location if you're interested in that, because it was pretty cool. We've both got his business card. We will post a link to his website beneath this video.
What predictions did Back to the Future 2 get right?
Well, we don't have flying cars.
Indeed,
we don't have
we don't.
Mr. Fusion.
No.
We don't have those awesome goggles.
And we don't have Jaws 19.
We don't have Jaws 19, but Universal, I think it's Universal, isn't it? Recently released a kind of parody trailer for Jaws 19. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Search it in Google or YouTube if you get the chance. It's very funny. Jaws 19 trailer. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. What else did they get right? We don't have self-lacing shoes, self-drying clothes.
We don't have hoverboards, which I'm really, really annoyed about.
Hey, we've got one more day left.
I was about 8. That was when I first saw Part 2. I really wanted a hoverboard, and we'll probably never get one.
We may do, Freddie. There's a chance.
We can hope.
We can indeed.
It is our last hope.
It is. Something interesting about film 2, the writer who was Bob Gale, again, I think it was Bob Gale who said this, I'm just assuming it was the writer, you've probably seen it, it's been trending on Facebook recently, saying he would have never predicted smartphones for 2015, for the future. One of the things that he could never have come up with. There are probably better articles than what we've just done about what Back to the Future 2 got right and wrong. Well, I think it's a shame that we don't have flying cars, but that's perhaps just me. I have to say I quite like the 2015. I was just saying it's the best version it's the coolest, most exciting version of Hill Valley we get to see, and certainly ties into the more. I was saying the film is more science fictiony, and the most of the three. That kind of makes sense that this one, if any, would be the one that goes to the future. But I love how the future scene in 2015 looks like the 80s in the future. It's the 80s with flying cars and talking TVs. I think that's great.
And there's a Michael...
Oh, that's right, because they're in Cafe 80s.
The cafe.
Interesting, this is one of the lesser known pieces of trivia about those films. The Cafe 80s set is, of course, the same cafe that Marty goes into the 50s. In the 50s, sorry. It's Lou's Cafe. Well, in the 80s, that's a gym. And Marty goes past it when he's on his skateboard in the first film and waves at all the women in there. It's most people know the little bits of trivia and Easter eggs about Back to the Future.
Of course, Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood, yeah. He's one of the kids in that cafe. His debut, I believe. It's a baby's game. Yeah. I love the 2015 stuff, and I certainly did when I saw the second film for the first time, because it was, well, it still is, because it's more of a science fiction adventure film. Certainly the 2015 sequence was possibly my favourite part of the series. I do like that bit, except Marty's son's cap, which I think is stupid, and we'll never talk about that again, because it really kind of gets my heckles up, and it's quite irrational, really, my hatred of that cap, but there you have it. Oh, guys, I'm going to tell you this before I forget. Pepsi are releasing a limited amount of Back to the Future style bottles or cans, whatever it is that Marty gets out of the counter, and is given by the two talking TV screens, the kind of glorified versions of Holly from Red Dwarf. What a crossover. Imagine that, a crossover between Back to the Future and Red Dwarf. That would be quite something. I'd love to see Doc Brown explaining backwards.
Use time slides or
oh god, Doc would have so much fun with time slides, but Doc and Crichton would get on pretty well.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to see a kind of a battle of the bands. Oh my god. That would be great if Lister's band had shown up. Yes, the Song versus Power of Love. Can you imagine that scene in the first film if Dave Lister's band were auditioning? That would have been quite something. Alright, film 2 is often called the darkest of the three, which is obviously because of the evil 1985 and the fact that Biff shot Marty's dad.
And he's a wife beater.
He is, yeah.
Well,
but you'd expect him to be a wife beater, whichever timeline we're in. Biff.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Yeah, evil 1985. I think because that makes the film darker, may have put me off a little bit when I was younger. I don't know. Maybe that was cancelled out by the more adventure style of the film. But I quite like it. It's one of the more memorable, 20-minute sequences of the series, however long they're in, 1985, the evil 1985. Yes. But I quite like it. I do now, at least. It's quite something. It's kind of like it's kind of like the Treehouse of Horror episode of Back to the Future.
Yes, yeah, that is pretty accurate. It's like there's 2 or 3 different stories.
I suppose it is. It's
kind of.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know if perhaps we're overthinking that. I guess it's a bit like that. Jennifer, although she's kind of seen as a main character, isn't really in the films that much, and she's knocked out for most of 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Right in. Would you have liked Jennifer to join Marty and Doc on their adventures in films 2 and or 3? I'm undecided. I think it would have been nice to develop her a bit more, because she seems like she's not just in the first film. Even though she only does serve as Marty's love interest, she does seem a bit more 3D than other characters in other films who fill the same purpose. So yeah, I'd like to see her around. I don't know that I would, because I quite like the buddy movie nature of 2 and 3.
And I'm also undecided on this subject. So we'd be very interested to hearing what you guys think.
Because we can't make our minds up.
Yes.
I quite like... The second film starts proper. A lot of the tropes that we see in the films for the rest of 2 and 3. The obvious one being events repeating themselves. I mean, yeah, it happens in the first film with the homework and the "Did you write up my reports, McFly?" But it starts properly in the second film. We've got and it's even addressed by Biff when we have that great chase, the hoverboard chase, and it's like there's something very familiar about all this. And when Marty wakes up in Evil 1985, and he's like, "Mom, I had a horrible dream, and it was horrible, and that's okay, Marty. You're back home now, safe and sound on the good old 27th floor. 27th floor? Mom, you're so big!" It makes me smile at that scene, because it's the first... No, it's not the first time. The chase is the first time, really, that we see events repeating themselves properly. Yeah. I like it, and again, that will be touched on when we talk about film 3. It also begins to feature things like... Well, okay, it's in the first film with Lone Pine Mall and Twin Pines Mall, but these little Easter eggs that kind of make it seem, more well thought out and complete in a way. Stuff like in the future, Goldie Wilson III is running for mayor, and we've got things like we've got the Texaco garage from '55 is still around in 2015. We get it in the third film with Eastwood Ravine that was Clayton Ravine, which is kind of funny because it implies that everyone thinks Marty fell down the ravine, which has only just occurred to me, and I've seen that film God knows so many times.
Would that have happened if you were in 1885 watching the...
Well, I don't know if people saw it, but it's just... It could be...
The train have gone over the cliff, or they've just
vanished. The train did. The train does.
Yes, so yeah.
Yeah, so maybe people think Marty went down the cliff, or the ravine, sorry. I think that's really funny.
Or the Clint Eastwood... No, but that's kind of...
Yeah, you just like the Clint Eastwood jokes.
Yeah.
Film... and it's got Biff's logo that he first has when he's waxing cars, and then you see it at the top of Biff Tower.
Oil tycoon.
Is that what he is?
I think so.
I just thought he got rich gambling. But yeah, he's.
I think so.
You see it.
I think that's how he got his start. But
Okay.
I think he bought out some oil companies. I may have that wrong, so don't hold me to that though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we see Biff's logo from when he was cleaning cars on the top of Biff Tower. It's Pleasure Paradise, isn't it? That's what it's called.
Yeah.
And that's again addressed in the third film where Marty takes the matchbook and it changes from whatever it changes to. Oh, come on, you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. Favourite scene in the second film, Freddie?
It's got to be the Marty going into what he thought was his house and getting chased by a baseball bat.
I think that's pretty funny. But my favourite scene in that film has to be... It's my favourite scene in the entire series, and it has to be the very end. When the guy turns up and he's like, Marty McFly. What? And Marty thinks Doc's dead. Are you Marty McFly? Yeah, I've got a letter for you. And he's like, he's alive, the Doc's alive. He's like, can I help you, kid? There's only one man who can help me. It's like, oh my god, there's going to be more. Then he runs to the clock tower we see the ending of the first film. Then Marty kind of runs up again and it's like, I sent you back to the future. He's like, I'm back, Doc. I'm back from the future. And it's like, oh shit, there's going to be more.
And then the Doc faints and then just to be continued.
Yeah. But I love him because Marty's kind of going, he's alive, the Doc's alive. He's in the Old West, but he's alive. God knows what that guy's thinking. But that's kind of that idea that there's going to be more. And, the adventure isn't finished. I absolutely love. It's my favourite scene in the entire series. Film 3, Freddie.
Yes.
It's more like the first film.
Yes, it is. It's
more light-hearted, and it's, like I was saying earlier, about how events repeat themselves. The story of the first one is kind of repeated with Marty and Doc. Doc doesn't make it, but Marty needing to get back in time by a certain time because he has to get the right train. I don't mind that they reuse that because, like we were saying, a lot of things, it's a kind of standing joke, and it becomes, I don't know, either from a trope to a joke or a joke to a trope, depends if you like it at first or not, of the series. That events repeat themselves no matter kind of what timeline or what whereabouts in time you are. And so I don't mind that they do that again, with Marty needing to get to where he is at a certain time to get back in time. To get back to the future, sorry, and certainly because it's different enough from the first film. It's the train sequence. The mechanics of it, if you like, work differently. But also, unlike Return of the Jedi, that's why I think
this could take quite a while.
Yes. The ending of Return of the Jedi, as I'm sure it does with a lot of people, pisses me off, because I think it's very unimaginative that they have a second Death Star with exactly the same fault as the first one.
It's more powerful.
It's still got exactly the same fault. That isn't excused, but the ending of Back to the Future 3, in my view, is, because, like I was saying, events repeating themselves is a big part of the series. As we see in the third film with Marty waking up, and it's a relative from his dad's side who is played by the actress who plays his mum, whose name escapes me. I think that's really funny.
Lee Thompson.
Lee Thompson, thank you. It kind of implies that the McFlys are inbred, and it's like Milhouse's parents in The Simpsons. They look exactly the same as each other. Are they brother and sister? And look at Milhouse. Maybe that's why Milhouse is such an oddball, because he's inbred, like Joffrey in Game of Thrones. Yeah, his parents are...
Ralph Wiggum.
Yeah, do his parents look the same?
Or is he just...
He's just odd. Ralph Wiggum's just odd.
It's his age, isn't he? He's about...
Yeah, maybe he turns...
3, 4, something like that.
I think he's Lisa's age, so he's 8, but maybe in 10 years' time, Ralph Wiggum is a kind of tall, square-jawed super jock or something.
Maybe a Neville Longbottom type situation.
Maybe. I think the third film, is the first to feature a proper antagonist. An antagonist who wants to do something. Like in the first film, we have Biff, who's just a thug. Then in the second film, we have different incarnations of Biff. Oh, we forgot something about the second film, so I'll discuss that at the end. We have different incarnations of Biff. We have Griff, we have Future Biff, and we have evil 1980.
More evil Biff.
Yeah, and evil 1985 Biff and Thug Biff from the first one, who is kind of the proper baddie because he's trying to kill Marty at the end, and he's the one who's present at the big climax of the film, which is, I suppose,
Would you say
very different from the first and third, because it's Marty fighting someone. He's kind of fighting for his life and not trying to get to time travel for a change. Anyway, moving on.
Would you say that the incarnation of Biff in the second film, who tries to kill Marty, is the same? Well, it is the same Biff.
No, he isn't, because the incarnation of Biff that is in Evil 1985 is the incarnation of Biff who got the almanac and was successful with it. The one we see who tries to kill Marty gets away with the almanac, so he's the Biff who grows up to be car-washing, happy, smiley, fat guy Biff.
Of course he does.
The third film is the first film to have a proper antagonist. This film's incarnation of Biff, of course, being Mad Dog Buford Tannen, or Buford Mad Dog Tannen, who was going to be killed, but wasn't for reasons I'll get onto in a moment. It's just makes it a bit different, and is another way in which the identical ending to the first one is not identical. The similar ending to the first one is different, I should say, because it adds a level. There is two things that are going to happen at pretty much the same time in Marty's last day in 1885. Could be killed, and he needs to get back to the future. I find Buford, maybe because Biff's kind of a comedy villain, Buford is perhaps the least entertaining, but he's very evil. He's kind of like 1985 Biff. He's Biff who doesn't have to follow any rules, really, because he seems to get away with most of the things he does okay. He eventually gets arrested, and he was going to be killed. And I will explain. In film 3, Marshall Strickland, his son is some relation to Strickland. I don't know if he's his dad or his granddad, or if he's meant to be Strickland himself. I don't suppose he can be. Oh, that would make him 100 and something years old. So he must be Strickland's father. Buford was gonna kill Marshall Strickland, and I believe there is a deleted scene where he does that, but it was taken out because if they did that, Marty would have to kill him in the gunfight, and if Marty kills him in the gunfight, no Biff. And yes, you could say, well, perhaps he's already got a kid, but they would have to explain that in the film, which, of course, never happens. And I don't know if I'd like Marty to be a killer. It would be a pretty dark way to end the most light-hearted of the films, because I meant to put this in the segment for film 2. These films, in tone, kind of follow Indiana Jones. They have a kind of serious one for the first one, the darkest one for the second, and then the third film is lighter, the most light-hearted, possibly has the most humour in, I don't know, but it's the more light-hearted of the three. It's also kind of like Indiana Jones, not remake, but it's the most similar in plot to the first one. Also, do people like It's a Western? Cut this out. Do people like the fact that it's a Western? I know some people don't. After the second film, they wanted perhaps to see something on a bigger scale, and whereas, apart from the future, all of the other time zones in the film are something people know about, 55 and then the different versions of 85. The Western kind of takes it away from the rest of the story. I have to say, I think it's great. The third film and the cowboy episode of Red Dwarf are what got me interested in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I haven't seen many Westerns, but I thought, I like this episode of Red Dwarf, I like Back to the Future 3, Westerns must be kind of cool. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a Western, isn't it, Dad? And I was like 10, 11 when I saw that film. I absolutely love it. You were about the same age, weren't you?
About 5.
5?
Or
Jesus.
6. Which is... It got me hooked onto films.
That's interesting.
Probably, I don't think it's a popular belief, but it wasn't watching the first James Bond film I saw.
That's probably what everyone in our class at uni
Yeah,
thinks.
but it was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I can confirm.
Just so you understand, this guy is nuts about James Bond. I have in my room right now over 10 Bond films. I have all the Moors and then a few others because he got me interested in them. And I've been watching them for about a year now. I just watched License to Kill today, having seen it once before, but I was kind of half asleep. Watched it again today, loved it. What do you guys think of Clara? Again, same with the Western thing and the other stuff we've mentioned. Write in and tell us. I like it's a Western. I like that it's a Western, and I'm undecided about. Clara is kind of fun, and she's like a parallel to Doc, which is kind of cool. But I feel like maybe they don't focus enough on her. Possibly, I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking. I think Jennifer is certainly from the little we see of Jennifer, she seems like a more developed character. I don't know. Maybe it's the actress. I don't know the name of the actress who plays Clara.
I don't either.
But
one thing I do like about the relationship that Doc and Clara have is that it could. I don't think this was intentional or it was just my own interpretation of it, but I see similarities between that and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Oh yeah, you mentioned this earlier. I haven't seen Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I will get round to it. Go on, Freddie.
Paul Newman and the bike and raindrops keep falling on my head. Yeah, that bit.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because I guess I made that leap because they're both westerns and there's a romance element.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there are, as we know, there's references. There's a reference to, I think it's it's A Fistful of Dollars, which we see a scene from in the second film, and it's the same scene that Marty uses as inspiration for his bulletproof vest in film 3.
Yes.
Like the hot remote, aim for the hot. I used to have a poster of that, and we lost it when I moved house. No, I lost it when we moved house. Not Freddie and I, my parents and I. Yeah, I think that's pretty great. And if you say there's references to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, I believe you. Well, I don't think you'd lie about something like that.
Well, it may just be my interpretation. There aren't any explicit references to it, but maybe that's where that may have been where they got the idea from. That's what I mean.
I think my favourite example of scenes repeating themselves from earlier on in the film or from other films is in the third film. We have it in 55 and we have it in 2015, and it's in the same, I'm guessing around the same minute mark because it's early on each time. It's in film 3, and that is when Marty goes into the saloon and Buford and his gang, who are Biff's cronies. I don't know if they're the same actors. I hope they are, because they are in the other two.
I think they are.
Because they're his henchmen in Evil 1985. When they go in and when Biff and his cronies, Buford and his cronies go in to the saloon, it's like, hey McFly, what are you doing in here? And of course, it's exactly the same as the other two, but it's great. And when they get on horseback, and he's going to hang Marty. I love it. I shouldn't get that excited about the hero getting killed, but I absolutely love it. I think it's really funny, and it's the best example, possibly, of the third film making jokes about the Western genre, which of course are present throughout. I really like that scene. Okay. Oh, I also quite like the origin of the clock tower that we see at the party.
Oh, yeah, of course. That scene's probably my favourite of the third film.
Oof! I was about to ask, what's your and it's that.
Yeah.
Okay, my favourite scene.
It might be because of the kind of continuity it gives. Well, the story of the clock tower.
I suppose it seems kind of right to see the origin of the clock tower, given how important it is in the story.
Yeah.
In the first one, the best one.
Yes.
Favourite scene? Yours is the origin of the clock tower.
Clock tower.
Mine could possibly, I think my favourite scene in the third film is the hanging. Not the hanging. My favourite scene in the third film is, I think, the scene I was just discussing, the saloon scene. I really like it. I think it's really funny. Well, it's not super funny, but it's pretty good. It's I like it the way, because it's the most on the nose joke about the Western genre, apart from the gunfight, and it's another example of history repeating itself in the series. I really like it. It's the introduction to our new incarnation of Biff. Almost forgot. Third film, ending. Train.
Oh yeah.
What do you think? Do you like it? Do you not?
I do like it.
Me too. I think it's great that Doc shows up.
Jules and Vern.
Yeah.
As kids.
Yes, there's that as well. But Doc shows up, and yeah, he's got another time machine that's got similar. If you look at it, a picture of the train, you can see things like the exhaust and the flux capacitor, and yeah, it's got Jules and Vern. But this idea that Doc just becomes a time traveller, almost like Doctor Who. I really like that, and it's a nice ending for him, because we know what we hope when we watch the films. Or the first time someone sees the film, they're probably not thinking about it, but what they want is for Marty to get back to his parents and to get back to Jennifer.
Yes, and a normal 1985.
Yeah, but I don't know if people think about it for Doc, but it's a nice ending for him.
Yes.
And it kind of goes back to the second film, more science fiction-y more science fiction-y feel, which I think I quite like. I like that the train is kind of steampunky, because it seems quite fitting, given that Doc is, of course, a Jules Verne fan and calls his kids Jules and Verne. I like Doc's ending. Okay, Freddie.
Yes.
Rate the films out of 10, each one.
Right. Back to the Future, 9 out of 10.
Okay.
Back to the Future Part 2, 8 out of 10. Because
Okay.
I really like the fact that it's more complicated.
Okay, yeah.
And Part 3, 7.
Okay. Well, I'm a bit of a Back to the Future fan, so I'm going to give 1 and 2, I'm going to give them 10s, and I'm going to give the third one a 9. My own, it's not a bad thing about the third one, but the third one doesn't have the really tense feel, if you like, that the other two have. Maybe because it's the third one, and we know by then they're going to be okay. But the ending, you don't have the same kind of feeling of worry, feeling of jeopardy that you do. And certainly the second film has the best example of that, when you don't have a clue what's going on. The first time you watch it, certainly, and Marty doesn't, after Doc has seemingly evaporated. Alright, before we go, there's something I forgot to talk about in the second film, and that is Biff's death scene. I'll explain this, and this will be touched on if I do that video explaining how we broke Back to the Future. In 2015, when old Biff returns, if you see him, he kind of collapses like he's had a heart attack, and he kind of fades away. Because Marty and Doc and Biff are now in the 2015 that's the future to evil 1985. And in the evil 1985 timeline, Lorraine shoots Biff sometime in the 90s and kills him. So Biff fading away, which isn't shown fully, I don't think, but there's a deleted scene, is the closest thing the films have to a Biff death scene. And having just explained this, I may have to take back what I said about Freddy and I breaking Back to the Future. Again, you'll have to... I'm not going to explain all that in this video. Yeah, that's the closest thing we get to a Biff death scene, and like I said with the other things, write in or tweet us at the Overcranked if you would like to have seen Biff die. And I don't mean Griff or Buford, I mean Biff, because he's real Biff, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
So our episode next week, as we're uploading this one on a Wednesday for a very obvious reason, I think Wednesday will just be the day we upload.
Yes.
Our
I
episode
agree.
next week will be
The
the Spectre review.
Yes.
We're seeing it Monday night, 8 o'clock.
I mean, it's the first showing in Derby, I
It
believe.
is.
I believe.
Yeah.
Which is very exciting.
And then after that, we're going to do a Mad Max special. We were going to do that for the first episode, but we realised how close we were to Back to the Future Day, so we thought we'd do a Back to the Future episode instead.
Yes.
So next week will be Spectre. The week after will be the Mad Max special.
Stuff.
Next week won't be a discussion. I suppose it kind of will be.
It will be.
It'll be a film review, but we're not discussing a series or. Oh, okay, yeah, it'll be the Spectre episode, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll probably do more James Bond things because
Yeah.
Freddie is a massive Bond fan, and I myself have kind of come around to that way of thinking in the last year. Thanks for listening, guys, and have a good day. See you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye.